Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. This is the morning after Josecito Lopez's upset win over Victor Ortiz, in which he broke Victor Ortiz's jaw. Now, you're Saul Alvarez. You are a champion at 154 pounds. You have the world on a string. The fall of 2012 is yours. Manny Pacquiao has lost. Floyd Mayweather is behind bars. Victor Ortiz has lost. Andre Berto has failed a drug test. Right? The 147 to 154 weight classes literally have depleted themselves of known guys for you to fight. And the only other mega fight in the later part of this year is scheduled to be at 160. Right? Not your weight class. So who should you fight next? Right? The public wants championship boxing. You are a champion, right? The cards are in your hands. What's your next move? Quite frankly, there are a few very deserving fighters out there. But some of these guys are simply too risky, right? If you're Canelo, you're at a stage where your career now could literally take off. But this is boxing. A loss here knocks you down, just like Victor Ortiz's loss yesterday has derailed his short-term plans, just like Manny Pacquiao's loss to Timothy Bradley has slowed his roll, right? You cannot afford to lose here. Manny and Floyd are in their 30s. If you're gonna, you know what? Sergio Martinez is in his 30s, right? If you're gonna take over boxing, now is the time for you to establish that foundation. So, in my opinion, and I understand this is controversial, I know Canelo is unbeaten. I know he has beaten some technicians. I believe, in my opinion, the biggest name on his dossier to date from a technique skill level, I know this is controversial, is Miguel Vasquez, the lightweight champion. If you don't know who he is, you need to figure that out, right? Well, in my opinion, if I were advising Saul Alvarez, I would tell him to avoid the deserving thinkers, the technicians who move and have defense. Fighting these guys right now is simply too risky. And let me name who those guys are. They're deserving. They are deserving opponents, but they're too risky. The first name is Carlos Molina. Molina not only beats you, he embarrasses you. Take a look at Harold Letterman's scorecard for the Molina-James Kirkland fight. That fight was not close. Molina was putting on such a class that Kirkland's trainer, Ann Wolfe, hopped in the ring after that fight was stopped and told Molina that he was beating her own fighter. Right? You cannot afford to be undressed by a technician. Let me point out, too, that in my opinion, Molina beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. If Molina gets a shot on Canelo and beats him, history would be rewritten. Because I think anyone who saw the Molina-Kirkland fight knows Molina won that fight. There's a crowd out there who saw the Molina-Erislandy Lara fight, who believes that Molina, who ended up with a draw in that fight, really won that fight. So if Carlos Molina is fighting the best out there, the toughest matchups, and beating them, if he were to beat Canelo, then we would have to look at Molina not just as a champion, but as a very deserving, dominant champion. Right? That would take the spotlight away from Canelo. You can't afford it, Canelo. Another fighter. This guy's unknown, but I believe he has the skill set to beat Saul Alvarez, and that's Austin Trout. Keep in mind, Trout's already wearing one of the belts at 154 pounds. Nobody knows who this guy is, but Canelo does, because Austin Trout went to Mexico and took the title from Canelo's older brother. Right? Austin Trout simply moves too well, has too many skills, wouldn't be there to get hit. I think Austin Trout is too risky an opponent, even though he has a belt at 154 and he's a deserving champ. Let's go one step further. The man I mentioned earlier, Erislandy Lara. You know, the problem with Lara is he is a surgical counterpuncher and he's a southpaw. Right? Take a look at Lara's fight, not against Paul Williams, but against Ronald Hearns. Right? You're going to see that Lara is so calm in the ring. He knows exactly what he wants to do. And the problem with surgical guys like this is they don't get involved in shootouts. They don't get caught up in the moment. The last thing Saul Alvarez needs is to get surgically countered for 12 rounds. He doesn't want to look like Paul Williams looked against Erislandy Lara. Right? If you want to see high-level boxing, look at Lara against Carlos Molina. I believe Lara, who was a decorated amateur before he became a pro, and who, as a pro, has fought, like Molina, some of the toughest matchups in the weight class. Keep in mind, he fought Molina, who really wants to fight Paul Williams, or wanted to fight Paul Williams, right? The point is simply, Lara has fought top-level competition, and he's such a surgeon that it would be a problem fighting him. Let's name another name, and this guy's name needs to be put in the mix at 154 pounds, right? This isn't the mainstream media. This is the non-mainstream YouTube crowd. We're going by talent, not height. You need to know about Vanes Martirosyan. There is a film clip of a sparring session between Martirosyan and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. The hand speed gap is jarring. Martirosyan simply has the much faster hand speed. I don't think we'll be seeing Chavez Jr. fight Martirosyan as a professional anytime soon, because just like Kenny Norton convinced his sparring mate, Joe Frazier, that he was too big of a risk to fight professionally, I believe Vanes Martirosyan has convinced Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. that he'd be the wrong fighter for him to fight professionally, because Martirosyan could win that fight. He's tall, he's fast, he's a technician. He does get a bit distracted in the ring at times, right? He has been hit and dropped in some fights when he's lost his attention. But let me just say this. If Vanes Martirosyan brings his A game, he's far too much of a risk for Saul Alvarez in the fall of 2012. Let me name another fighter who's too much of a risk. And this guy also seems to be below people's radar. And that's the man, Anthony Mundine. Understand, I know, Mundine came in the ring one night, was uninspired, and lost to a guy named Garth Wood. Right? I know the Mikhail Kessler crowd is going to point out that Mundine, when he was starting out many years ago, lost to Mikhail Kessler. But understand who Anthony Mundine is when he brings his A game. He beat current middleweight champion Daniel Geale. He beat former cruiserweight champion Danny Green. When Anthony Mundine is right, when he's motivated, he's a great technician in the ring. He's very much like Roy Jones. He can not only beat you, he can embarrass you. Here again, too much risk. I know Mundine is older, but if anything gets an old guy motivated to train for a fight and to come in ready, it's a chance to pick up a title against a young guy who they feel just hasn't been around the block enough and just doesn't have the skill level. So Molina, Trout, Lara, Martirosyan, Anthony Mundine, if I'm Canelo, I say, no. Simply put, too much risk. Let's talk about options for him. I've already blown 10 minutes, 11 minutes of this video. What I'd recommend for Canelo, right, is first, option number one, a deserving former champ at 154 pounds who's very dangerous, but who you're physically bigger than, who you can guard against his power punch, which is a left hand, and who has fought the best there is. And that's Miguel Cotto. Cotto's 37-3. Understand he's only lost to 3 fighters. He lost to Antonio Margarito in a fight that is being questioned, given Margarito's subsequent hand wrap controversy following the Shane Mosley fight, right? Cotto's also lost to Manny Pacquiao. Most recently, Cotto lost to Floyd Mayweather. But understand that the viewing public believes that Cotto gave Mayweather one of his toughest fights to date. It's clear that Floyd Mayweather respects Miguel Cotto, said many complimentary things about him after the fight. Cotto is a credible opponent. He's a championship level opponent. Not only that, since Saul Alvarez is Mexican, and since Cotto is Puerto Rican, as anyone who's from Mexico or Puerto Rico knows, that's a great boxing rivalry, right? Think Salvador Sanchez, Wilfredo Gomez. There are just too many great matchups, but historically, between Mexican fighters and Puerto Rican fighters. That would be a promotional bonanza. And I believe that would be a high impact fight with credibility that could catapult you to the next level, right? Not only that, Miguel Cotto is going to be there fighting you. He's not going to pose some of the problems that a Carlos Molina or an Austin Trout or an Erislandy Lara or a Vanis Martirosyan or an Anthony Mundine would pose, right? He's going to be there. It's going to be a shootout, right? You're not going to get embarrassed by a guy who can fight you off his back foot, pivot you, and completely out-defense you, right? Cotto is high excitement. I think he's worth a look. Let me give another option. And I think this one is one that older people understand. Sometimes you make money by not fighting. You're the champ at 154. The fans understand that you want to be in the ring. You're not one of these champs who doesn't want to fight. It's just that the guys who you were going to fight, James Kirkland, Victor Ortiz, aren't available for you to fight. So no one views you as ducking guys or just trying to hold on to the title for years without hopping in the ring. You're not viewed as Guillermo Jones, popular champ who hardly ever fights, right? So here's an intriguing option. Scrap the September fight. Announce that you want the winner of the Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Sergio Martinez fight, and you're willing to do so at middleweight. As everyone knows, you weighed 167 pounds on the night of the fight against Shane Mosley. You want to work with your promoter, Golden Boy, behind back channels to get Bob Arum and Top Rank's cooperation to put together a mega fight. It would be mega, where you literally fight the winner of that middleweight showdown. And of course, you can promote the fight. You can literally make money by promoting the fight, by doing it old school style. They're about to fight. You get a seat in the front row. You make sure your seat is near the announcing team. They interview you. You get up in front of the fans and you say, hey, I want the winner of this fight. I haven't seen anything tonight that tells me that I can't beat Sergio Martinez or Chavez Jr. Right? I'll tell you what, you fight the winner of that fight at middleweight, in my opinion, that would be the biggest fight of next year. It would be huge. Not only that, if you win that fight, and you're big enough, if you win that fight, you could then fight a lucrative victory lap fight before fighting the winner of Dmitry Pirog versus Daniel Geale. In other words, you'd be literally in the middle of an informal tournament at middleweight for supremacy in the division. And let's face it too, you'd have a cover story. If you were to fight the winner of Chavez Martinez, and if you lose that fight, you could then say, hey, you know what? The weight was too much for me. Or, I was too young when I fought this fight. This is prize fighting. If you want the biggest prize, my point is you want to go where the action is. And of course, rather than make even $5 million fighting in the fall, you could make substantially more than that by fighting the winner of Chavez versus Martinez. But there is risk, right? You need to find out whether either of those fighters has a rematch clause, and of course, if their fight ends in controversial fashion, then the public might demand a rematch, and that could throw some cold water on the situation. But right now, boxing does have a problem. It has 2 mega fights scheduled for the same day in the same town, right? You're going to oversaturate the pay-per-view market. You're going to oversaturate the live gate. One's at the MGM Grand. The other is supposed to be at the Thomas Mack Center. If you're Canelo, you can solve that by, through the promoters, declaring that you want the winner. Don't make the announcement until it's a done deal. And then you can be in the mix at the higher weight class. Let me just say, though, that if you're going to enter the middleweight ranks, and there has been talk in the past about you fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., even there you need to be careful. You don't want to hop in the ring with Hassan Njikum. You don't want to hop in the ring too soon with Dmitry Pirog, right? Just like at 154, you have some slick, very advanced technicians at 160. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. I'll just be as blunt as I can be. As talented as Canelo is, there are a bunch of slick fighters at 154 who he needs to avoid right now, even though they're deserving. The public wants to see him in the ring with Austin Trout. I'm just here to tell you, Austin Trout, in my opinion, is more dangerous an opponent for Canelo than is Miguel Cotto. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here and visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.